A fisherman named Syracuse is out on the water running his nets when he unexpectedly pulls up a woman's body. Initially thinking she's dead, he soon realizes she's alive and quickly performs mouth-to-mouth to revive her. After helping her expel the water from her lungs, he tells her she's going to be okay, though the woman is in shock, insisting she thought she had died. Syracuse wraps her in a blanket to warm her up and suggests taking her to a hospital, but she refuses. She seems desperate not to be seen and insists she's fine, despite what just happened. When a boat passes nearby, the woman ducks to avoid being spotted. Syracuse finds her reaction strange and asks her for her name, but she says she doesn't know, leading him to assume that she might have suffered a head injury and lost her memory. Introducing himself as Syracuse, he tells her people call him Circus because they think he's a fool. He quickly realizes the woman doesn't want to be seen by anyone, so instead of pressing the issue, he offers to take her to a secluded place. Syracuse brings her to his late mother's old, abandoned house in an isolated area. He gives her his lunch and, before leaving, asks if she'll be all right by herself, explaining that he needs to go somewhere. Surprisingly, she says she'll be fine, so he heads off to pick up his disabled daughter, Annie, for her regular dialysis appointment. While at the dialysis center, Annie asks Syracuse to tell her a story, and he begins recounting the tale of a fisherman who caught a mysterious woman in his net. Annie, intrigued by the story, asks what kind of creature the woman was, wondering if she could be a mermaid or a selkie, a mythical creature said to live part of its life as a seal. Syracuse tells her he doesn't know for sure, but Annie is convinced there's more to the story than he's letting on. Syracuse later returns to the woman at the abandoned house and finds her still there, much to his surprise. When he asks why she hasn't left, she replies that she doesn't really have anywhere else to go. Syracuse pulls his boat out for another day of fishing, and the woman, now calling herself Ondine, asks to come along. At first, Syracuse hesitates, explaining that it's considered bad luck to have a woman on a fishing boat, but eventually changes his mind and allows her to join him. As they're out at sea, Ondine begins singing a hauntingly beautiful song in an unfamiliar language, and as she sings, Syracuse unexpectedly starts pulling in more lobsters than usual. He's astonished because he typically struggles to catch much. They try again, with Ondine singing, and Syracuse hauls in an even bigger catch. He realizes that her singing somehow brings him good luck. Syracuse teaches Ondine how to tie the lobster's claws and asks her if she remembers anything about herself, such as her real name. She reveals that Ondine is a name that means woman from the sea. After catching an unusually large number of lobsters, Syracuse heads into town to sell them and promises Ondine she'll get a share of the money. However, Ondine refuses to accompany him into town because she's adamant about not being seen by anyone else. Syracuse points out that he has seen her, but she insists that he is the only one who can. Syracuse uses the money from selling the lobsters to buy her a dress and even steals some women's underwear for her. Later, Syracuse tells Annie more of the fisherman's story, explaining that the woman from the sea has a special connection with the ocean and can summon sea creatures with her song. Annie, convinced the woman is a selkie, starts researching selkies and learns that they are mythical beings who can shed their seal skins and live on land for 7 years. During this time, they might find unexpected happiness with a human. When Syracuse returns to the house, he finds Ondine trying on his mother's old shoes, struggling to tie the laces. He gives her the dress he bought, and she kisses him to express her gratitude. When he asks how long she plans to stay, she responds that it depends on him. He tells her she can stay as long as she wants, which surprises her. Meanwhile, Annie secretly observes her father and Ondine's growing connection. She becomes more convinced that Ondine is a selkie and continues reading up on the mythical creatures. Syracuse, meanwhile, goes to church to confess, admitting to the local priest that he's been sober for over 2 years but still struggles with his ex-wife, who continues to drink. He also confesses that he recently stole some underwear, but quickly assures the priest that it's not what he thinks. Syracuse confides in the priest about Ondine but avoids giving too many details, keeping her presence a secret. Ondine's interactions with Annie deepen when they meet, and Annie confronts her, saying she knows her dad didn't make up the story about the selkie. Annie asks if Ondine can perform magic and cure her kidney failure, but Ondine denies having any magical abilities. However, Annie remains convinced, pointing out that selkies belong in the water and asking whether Ondine has buried her seal coat somewhere to live on land. Ondine laughs off the idea but acknowledges Annie's knowledge of selkie lore. The two grow closer, and Ondine even helps Annie learn to swim, but during one lesson, Ondine notices something in the water and dives in to retrieve it. When she emerges with a mysterious object, Annie excitedly asks if it's her seal coat, and Ondine quickly agrees, telling Annie they should bury it to ensure she can stay on land. The relationship between Syracuse and Ondine becomes more intense, and they begin to fall in love. However, trouble looms when a dark-haired man arrives in town, clearly searching for someone. Ondine grows anxious, recognizing the man as someone from her past. As the story unfolds, Ondine reveals the truth to Syracuse. She's not a selkie but a Romanian woman named Joanna, caught up in a drug smuggling operation with the dark-haired man, Vladik. She was forced to swim with drugs after being caught by the Irish Coast Guard, but Syracuse unknowingly rescued her. Things take a dangerous turn when Vladik and his accomplice threaten Syracuse and Annie, demanding that Joanna reveal the location of the drugs she hid. Joanna leads them to the place where the drugs were buried, but they're no longer there. Annie reveals that she moved the seal coat because she didn't want Ondine to leave. In a dramatic confrontation on Syracuse's boat, Joanna tricks Vladik into falling overboard, where he drowns, unable to swim. With the threat of Vladik gone, Joanna is taken into custody but faces deportation as she's a non-national. However, Syracuse decides to marry her, allowing her to stay in Ireland legally. The story ends with a joyous wedding at sea, where Syracuse, Annie, and Joanna celebrate their new life together, surrounded by the local fishing community.